I think EVs are clearly making a lot of inroads globally and domestically in both China and the U.S. What's interesting is that there's been these really big, brash assessments and predictions about how quickly we'll get to full EV, and we're seeing slowdowns in not just the U.S. with the incentives going away at the end of this month, but also even in China. We've seen some slowdowns. I think they had one of the lowest growths in August, around 7.5% was the lowest growth they've had since 2018. So I think EVs are going to obviously continue to play a role and probably an increasing role in global personal transportation. But the rate at which we're getting there is not going to be at the rate that a lot of people had predicted. It's going to take longer.
Why is that?
I think you still have a lot of challenges with EVs. I think a lot of people want to ignore the obvious, whether it's the increased cost that you pay for them, the increased depreciation after you've bought one, the increased challenges if you're in a colder climate when it comes to range and charging. The idea that maybe they work for you 50, 70, 95% of the time perfectly, but if you get a certain circumstance where suddenly you have to change your daily life, your transportation for that day suddenly changes drastically, the infrastructure makes it much more challenging. If you suddenly have to take a long trip, you can't just take the trip. You've got to stop everything, plan, look at the charging options, and hopefully they'll all work for you.
Carl, let's talk about Elon Musk and Tesla, because Musk, if you listen to his stockholders, simply lost focus this year, wading into politics with Donald Trump. But Musk says he is back. And what about his significant efforts to get his robotaxi up and running? It has not gone smoothly. Where does it stand, and how has that affected Tesla so far?
Yeah, Musk sees that he's hit peak EV sales. He's down so far in 2025, and he's not going to see the kind of growth that he was talking about, where he was making millions and millions of cars in a few years. And he knows it, and everyone knows it. So he's got to find another revenue stream, and he's put a lot, really everything, on the company's future on self-driving tech and deploying that in robotaxis. And that makes sense. That's his next logical move, and he needs to go there. But there is no indication that anyone, Waymo, Tesla, or anyone else is going to actually have a profitable business model based on self-driving technology in the next few years minimum. And I think most people know that, but Tesla and Elon is typically Elon. He wants to act like we're quarters away as opposed to multiple years away, 4, 5, 7, 10 years away. And I think that's the reality that a lot of people need to keep in mind. You can have these very limited uses of self-driving technology in specific areas, geofence, low speeds, as long as there's no weather. The idea that you're going to have this ubiquitous, self-driving technology option everywhere, and people are going to be making a lot of money. The companies that are doing it are going to be making a lot of money. That's years away.
And he at the top of it, his board is talking about perhaps making him a trillionaire, but we'll get to that another time. Okay, China is the clear leader despite its slowdown in EV sales, manufacturing as well. The U.S., meanwhile, is going the other way, which is baffling a lot of people. What's going to take to get the U.S. back on track, and talk about how China has really just kind of seized the mantle and run with it?
Yeah, China has set everything up to benefit from EV sales. They locked down all the rare earth materials and supply chains years ago, and they know it. That means they can produce these vehicles at the least expensive, cost to them of any nation, and so they're in a very good position to benefit from EV sales, both their own and any others that happen where you have to use their batteries. And they're pushing hard to make EVs, the default form of transportation and drivetrain technology because of this. But a lot of other nations are rightfully pushing back. They don't want to see their own markets, Europe, US, others, overrun by inexpensive Chinese cars, which, let's be honest, they have a circumstance, whether it's their industry, everything's good for them, but it's not necessarily the best move for other countries to jump on the EV bandwagon so aggressively right now.
Okay, so what about other nations? What are they doing? Are they trying to catch up in this race with Tesla and leading Chinese brands such as BYD?
I think they're looking into things like their own domestic production. I know in the U.S. they're looking into how do we get, lithium and other rare earth metals that we are not dependent on China to supply us with, and battery technology moving forward. And I certainly think that in the future, whether it's 2 years or 15 years, breakthroughs could happen that would give us other forms of battery technology and more cost-effective
Okay.
electric cars. But in the near term, short of China, most of the other car company or most of the other countries, they're really not well positioned to go heavily into EVs. They're not going to be able to compete with China's costs. They're not.
It's going to be interesting to see how it moves forward. Karl Brauer, always a pleasure. Thanks for your insight.